Roger, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I saw a tweet you put out that said Vindman wants to run for Senate in Florida. I said I got to talk to Stone. What say you about that?
Well, I actually hope he runs because it will give us an opportunity to expose the fact that he and his brother and Adam Schiff all lied under oath to Congress. Now, that's significant because, as you know, that was the crime they charged me with. Even though to violate the False Statements Act, your false statement has to be willful, and it also has to cover up some underlying crime. It has to be material. In my case, as the special counsel was forced to ultimately admit once a federal judge ordered them to release the full unredacted Mueller report, they found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime. So I had no motive to lie. Therefore, no misstatement I made was material. In the case of the Vindmans, the two twin brother traitors working in the national security apparatus, they claim that they didn't know who the whistleblower was who allegedly overheard a conversation in which President Donald Trump quite correctly pressed the president of Ukraine to know about whether Joe Biden had pressured the government to fire a prosecutor who was hot on the trail of his son, Hunter Biden, in the Burisma scandal. We now know, of course, that they lied about that. They knew who the whistleblower was. He was Eric Ciamella, a former member of Senator, then Congressman Schiff's staff and a quote-unquote CIA analyst. So this whole thing here is a fraud. The whole Ukrainian impeachment was kind of twofold. On the one hand, the purpose was to try to impeach Donald Trump, but the much more important goal was to cover up the misconduct by Joe Biden and his son. And Biden was either so out of it or so arrogant that he actually, as you know, speaking to the World Economic Forum, he bragged about the pressure that he put on the Ukrainian government, saying that he would withhold $1 billion in aid unless they fired the son investigating his criminal son, Hunter. So, look, I hope that Vindman runs. It would be fun. I might grab the Libertarian Party nomination against him just so I can dog him across the state. Maybe even, I don't know, I might perform a citizen's arrest. I might handcuff him myself and bring him in. I don't think that he would really run given the political complexion of Florida, but perhaps he will. Here's the other key point, of course, and that is when his other brother, who's now a congressman, Eugene, testified, he was not a member of Congress. Therefore, there is no congressional immunity for his perjury. If I can be charged, the Vindman brothers can be charged. Hey, Eric. Hey, Alex. Hey, Eugene. Hey, Alex. Get ready for that 6 a.m. FBI raid on your home because I think it's coming.
Well, you're the Svengali of Florida politics and across the nation in different Senate or congressional races. Would Vindman even have a chance in Florida, do you think?
In the U.S. Senate race, any Democrat would have a very uphill climb. I mean, look, there are certainly House districts that Democrats can win. The biggest problem in the country, you know this, is that virtually 90% of the districts are districted in such a way that neither party really has a chance, that they're either a lock for the Democrat or a lock for the Republican. There's virtually a handful of truly swing seats. That's also pretty much true in Florida. But in a U.S. Senate race, you got a couple different questions here. Right now, the former Attorney General, Ashley Moody, has been appointed to the vacancy in the Senate that was created by the resignation of Marco Rubio.
Right.
She's an incredibly weak candidate. She's very popular because as Attorney General, she did nothing whatsoever. She had no record. Therefore, she hasn't offended anybody.
Especially against any of the election fraud. But go ahead.
Exactly. She did nothing on election fraud.
Yeah.
Extremely vulnerable in a primary. In all honesty, I'm working with others to recruit a candidate to seek that seat in the primary. Governor DeSantis, once he figures out that he cannot insert his wife as the Republican candidate for governor, by the way, he and his wife now under state investigation for the theft of Medicaid fraud funds, $10 million in Medicaid fraud. Once he determines that he cannot insert his wife in the gubernatorial nomination, which I do not think will work, he could elect to run for that Senate seat. He would have no problem backstabbing Moody. That's backstabbing is his specialty. Ask Donald Trump. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether the nominee for that seat turns out to be Ashley Moody or whether it turns out to be one of the members of the congressional delegation or whether it ends up being Ron DeSantis himself, which I think is unlikely but possible. I think it'd be very uphill for Vindman to win a statewide race.
Got it. Let's switch to another sector or side of Congress. They're not codifying what is being put into executive order by President Trump. That's on purpose, obviously. Any chance of that happening before POTUS gets out of his effective, time in office?
Well, fortunately, there have been some strong voices. We just saw Tim Burchett from Tennessee, very solid guy. And Paulina Luna has been very vocal on this as well. Look, I was not always a supporter of hers. I had early questions, but I'm also man enough to admit that I was completely wrong. She's turned out to be great, really great, courageous, bold, and a real fighter. So I do think you have some members here who are going to fight to codify some of this. But I do think, and people don't like this, but it's a reality, when you only have control of the House by 3 seats, any one member can flummox the speaker. All he has to do is say, well, I'm not voting with you. So it's great to say, let's impeach these judges, for example. Do you know how difficult it is to impeach a federal judge? First, you have to get articles of impeachment in the House. Well, you need every single Republican to vote for that. A number of them will not vote for it because their argument is that you can't impeach a judge for anything other than corruption. You can't impeach them because you disagree with their rulings. But then even if you could get articles of impeachment in the House, you need 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to remove a federal judge. They're lifetime appointments. That's why these judges like Boasberg in D.C. are so incredibly arrogant and why they constantly overreach. The only way they can be brought to heel is in a judicial proceeding. They have to be overruled. So the problem here, and I like Mike Johnson, by the way, he's a very nice guy, but he's got an almost impossible job. This is like herding cats.
Yeah.
Half of his caucus are go along to get along establishment Republicans who want to do nothing other than collect their paycheck, raise money for reelection, and go home. That's all they want to do. Investigate the Bidens, charge them with impeach them, even though we have more than sufficient evidence at the time of corrupt payments that flowed from Jimmy Biden, Hunter Biden to Joe Biden. That's not conjecture. That's a fact. But I'm not sure you could have gotten the votes to impeach Joe Biden, although he should certainly have been impeached. And then even had you done so, despite the fact that he was a vegetable, specifically a rutabaga, I think that he probably you wouldn't have gotten 2/3 of the vote to impeach him either. So the problem is in the Republican caucus. Then we don't stand up in the 14th district of Florida. I'm sorry, but retired Naval Commander Rocky Rockford won that seat. There's 54,000 mail-in votes, and when you go to the registration on those votes, there's no Social Security number and no date of birth. The House is the arbiter of who was elected. The House Administrative Committee makes a recommendation to the full House. All they had to do is say, no, Kathy Castor, you did not win. No, Commander Rockford, you did win. Let's vote. Very simple. In Orange County, California, 3 seats there where more people voted than are registered to vote. All the House Administration Committee has to do is review those numbers and void those elections and seat the challengers. Here's Stone's rules about politics.
Mm-hmm.
Use power or you lose power.
Yeah.
Use power or you lose power.
So let's talk about that in Florida, the massive election fraud evidence. Nothing's happening from DeSantis to Cord Bird, Ashley Moody. I don't know who the new AG is, but I mean, there's a problem, right? You mentioned mail-in ballots. I mean, the evidence is way out there. Everybody knows it. Everybody's seen it. It's public, but nothing's happening. Is that judicial? Is it executive? What is it? Both.
It's both, and frankly, it has to become an election an issue in the upcoming elections. You need to have an attorney general who will, unlike the past attorney general or the current attorney general, doesn't believe that Florida's election system is the gold standard, because that's a joke. Whether it is the work of Chris Jersky and the People's Audit, or whether it's the work of my friend Chris Gleason. There's a number of research out there who've done incredible work documenting the massive election fraud that takes place in Florida. It's not going to change until you elect a governor and an attorney general, and they appoint a secretary of state committed to cleaning up that system. The way to do that is to make it an issue in the next upcoming Republican primaries. Frankly, I'm looking for and hope to recruit a strong candidate for attorney general, because I think that's the most effective way to do it. And frankly, in all honesty, there's a high probability that Ron and Casey may be headed to prison, because I'm sorry, but the misappropriation of Medicaid funds is a crime.
So just for our audience sake, that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was $10 million that was paid to, I think, an NGO that she controls. Is that
basically what happened was $10 million was supposed to be used to pay for medical care for the aged, the disabled, and the elderly, was moved to a slush fund, and then from there was laundered to a campaign against a constitutional amendment, which the governor opposed. This is not about the amendment. It doesn't matter whether you are for or against the legalization of cannabis in Florida. It's about that money, which was public money that ended up getting used for political purposes. I believe it is a crime. Yesterday, there was an announcement that the Leon County prosecutor is investigating it. It was interesting when Governor DeSantis was asked about it. He threw his wife right over the side. Oh, that was all her project. That was her vision. You have to ask her about it.
Oh my. We're going to have to write on that on the Miami Independent. What about disclosures? We're starting to see some things come out and other things not. I mean, you had Cash and Bongino come out and said, no, Epstein killed himself and there was nothing wrong with the assassination of President Trump. What's going on there in your learned mind?
Yeah, I'm having a very hard time wrapping my head around that for several reasons. First of all, I know the attorney who Jeffrey Epstein retained literally 2 days before he killed himself. He just paid a very substantial amount of money for that attorney to move to New York to work on his case. He had an upcoming bail hearing. He also paid a huge retainer to that attorney.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
We recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
We also know that the pathologist, essentially like a coroner, who was hired by Epstein's brother to examine the body, indicates that there were none of the signs that would be consistent with him hanging himself. And then additionally, is my understanding that traces of a knockout drug have now been detected in the two guards who conveniently fell asleep
Wow.
while all this
Wow.
was going down. And of course, as you know, Todd, the security cameras just happened
Right.
coincidentally to
Right.
go down. Look, I know, I like, and I trust Cash Patel, so I have to wonder what he knows that I don't know. Tucker Carlson's reporting on this has been specifically good. It's interesting because way back in 2015, I was the second prominent American author to write very extensively about Jeffrey Epstein and his seed financing of the Clinton Global Initiative. I reported exactly on who was on his plane, the Lolita Express. I documented the 26 times that Bill Clinton was on his plane. I documented the 17 times Bill Clinton was on his island. I think it's very funny to look on social media and say, oh, a guy, a chauffeur on 4chan says Roger Stone was on Epstein's island, and we know it was him because he had his shirt off. He was wearing a bull mask, and you could see the Nixon tattoo on his back. So here's my message for anybody who believes that. Say it. Put your name on it. Put
Yeah.
your name on it, and I
Sure.
will see you in court.
Exactly. Exactly. Ed Martin is talking about the weaponization, process, and really actually saying some good things. Do you think we'll see something out of that to stop what happened to you?
Well, Ed is a very good man,
Mhm.
but in all honesty, I think it's time for action. He's
Mhm.
laid out in a very articulate way what needs to be done, but I can think of so many examples. I just gave you one. The
Mhm.
Vindman brothers need to be charged.
Mhm.
They lied to Congress. That's exactly what they charged me with. So you can't say the charge is inappropriate, even though I didn't lie to Congress. I made misstatements to Congress, but again, the misstatement has to be material. You have to be covering up some underlying crime for it to be material. There was no Russian collusion. Government never proved any evidence of it. They couldn't even prove any WikiLeaks collaboration. Mueller's final unredacted report admitted that there was no factual basis on which to prosecute me. So that's just an example. So the Vindman brothers could be charged and could go to trial. And the fact that one of them is currently a member of Congress doesn't give him immunity for lies he told under oath when he wasn't a member of Congress. Uh, Adam Schiff, whether he has immunity for his lies, not a lawyer, I'd have to check that. But there's no question about the fact that he lied. He said that he didn't know who the whistleblower was. Whistleblower was a former member of his staff. This whole thing is a hoax. Or I'll give you another example. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. She knew about a major New York financial institution, a bank that was violating the Iranian sanctions to the tune of $10 million. She should be prosecuted for that.
Hmm.
Members of the Justice Department also knew. She should be prosecuted for that. Here's one of the real problems, though, and I think we understand this. Even if you could charge John Brennan, and he's the most likely person to be charged, he's the major domo. He is the orchestrator of the Russian collusion hoax. He is the one who, without any probable cause, sent a list of 26 Trump associates, myself included, to the intelligence agencies in the 5 English-speaking nations, and insisted that we be spied on. He is the one who I think is a convert to radical Islam. He signed the visas for 4 of the hijackers who I believe attacked the United States on 9/11. He got caught red-handed spying on a U.S. Senate committee that was investigating his illegal use of torture. He was one of the 51 spies who claimed that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. On the other hand, if you charged him and he went to trial in D.C., he'll be acquitted. As you may recall, John Durham, the special counsel, charged a guy named Michael Sussman. He was a lawyer at the very, very, very bottom of the totem pole in the Russian collusion hoax. Indicting Michael Sussman's like indicting the guy who drove the getaway car for double
Right.
parking while you let the guys who robbed the bank get away. So D.C. is a killing ground. No Democrat will ever be held to account in a Democrat in a courtroom in D.C. There is not a non-corrupt judge sitting in D.C. Not one. You cannot get a fair jury in D.C. It's a sad joke. So you could indict James Comey, Susan Rice, John Brennan, many others involved in the Russian collusion hoax. They would merely go to D.C., where the facts don't matter, the law doesn't matter, the Constitution doesn't matter, the evidence doesn't matter. All that matters in a D.C. courtroom is politics.
Yeah, we have a lawsuit with RFK Jr. against the Trusted News Initiative. It was filed in D.C. or in Louisiana, and they got it moved to D.C. and it sits there 3 years later. So it's amazing. What about, you mentioned Comey? What do you make of this whole assassination thing?
Well, it's very disturbing. It wouldn't be as disturbing if there hadn't been 2 assassination attempts on the president. Again, I like Dan Bongino, but having written extensively about the Kennedy assassination and having just finished a book about the attempted assassination of Reagan, of which there are many, many questions that have not been answered that my new book will provide answers for.
What's the name of the book?
Bushwhacked,
the
real story of the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan.
Well, when you get it done and it's out,
I think you can get the gist. I think you get the gist of the book from that. Hopefully out this summer. But the point here is the idea that Thomas Matthew Crooks, first of all, I'm not even certain he is the shooter. Why would you hose down the roof from which he shot? Same way they hosed out the back of John Kennedy's limousine within an hour of his being shot. And we didn't even have the sophisticated DNA analysis then that we have today. So why would they hose down the roof other than to disperse his DNA so it could not be tested? We have still photos and video of him on the telephone. We're told he had no Confederates.
Yeah.
The intelligence agencies tell us that he had encrypted apps and they could break in to his encryption. Apple refuses to turn over his records, which is funny because Apple turned over my phone records and my computer records to Robert Mueller without even getting a subpoena. So I'm sorry, I'm not certain Mr. Crooks is the shooter. He may be. But why did they cremate his body? His family did not request that his body be cremated. Why did they move so quickly to cremate him? Unless, of course, they wanted to prove, they were afraid for that proof that he wasn't the shooter. There are eyewitnesses who report activities by others on the ground, particularly in the water tower. The explosives that he had were relatively sophisticated in the way they were wired. I think it is highly unlikely that he acted alone. And look, I like Dan Bongino, but just making a flat statement, oh, he acted alone, there's not more to it. I'm sorry.
Nobody believes that. So that makes me wonder, there has to be something more important that they're willing to like get egg all over their face to protect. Am I right? Or what do you think?
I mean, it is illogical. I don't want to subscribe a motive to it, but it's also true regarding the attempted assassination in West Palm Beach. This guy is clearly well known to our intelligence agencies, spends a lot of time in Ukraine. I actually just interviewed a witness who met him in Ukraine, had a conversation with him. We're told that he's indigent, that he's behind in his alimony payments, he's behind in his rent payments. Well, then how did he afford to fly to all these European capitals? How did he afford to post a website recruiting mercenary soldiers to fight in Ukraine? How did he get to the United States? How did he obtain a weapon here? A weapon in which the serial numbers on the barrel of the rifle had been filed off. You telling me he acted alone? Highly unlikely.
I know you got to go, Roger, but last question, the whole Biden situation, the auto pin, the cancer diagnosis, what say you about all this?
Well, I played a video, I played an audio last night on my radio show. By the way, I'm on 77 ABC at 77abcradio.com. WABC.com every night at 8 p.m., 77WABCRadio.com. Anywhere in the world you can tune in. I played an audio of Joe Biden in 2022 claiming that he had cancer then.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the White House statement says that he didn't learn of his cancer diagnosis until late last week, announced on Friday. There's an inconsistency there. I think that there's overwhelming evidence that he was mentally incompetent even when he was running for president, although I think there was a decline. And what's funny now is to see Jake Tapper, who is, let's face it, a complete piece of crap, not a journalist, just a propagandist who's now shredded whatever credibility he had, chastising Lara Trump. You're not a medical professional. You can't say that Joe was cognitively sliding. But now he's got a book out in which he says Joe was cognitively sliding. So this scumbag is trying to cash in on his own lies. The White House Correspondents' Dinner, they gave an award for a guy to stood up and said, hey, I wrote what every single person in the room knew. Joe Biden was not all there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anything else you want to get out, Roger?
No, I think we hit it pretty good.
All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming on today.
Great to
Take
be
care.
with you.